I bet that's going to be one of the biggest deer in Missouri all year, though.
Finally, you see its head roll, and instantly you see like the drop tines off the one side and stuff hanging off. Your hands start sweating, obviously, and you're just trying to hold yourself calm and stuff.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast, powered by DeerCast. Over there, well, that's Matt Drury.
Over there, we got Tim Kjellesvik.
We got a tag punched already this year.
You killed a doe?
Well, nope. Huh. No, my 9-pointer.
Oh, well, that doesn't count, Tim.
Salvage tag?
Well, I guess
Come on.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I saw your Instagram story. Sucks.
Sad. Yeah, it was a totally unknown deer to me, and I was out looking for some scrapes and moving some cameras around here recently, and I just saw that telltale curvature of a rack, and I was like, oh,
that's not a shed,
man. Probably not a shed. And walked over, and the crazy thing was, like, the coyotes are bad on this property, absolutely picked clean, but there were still strips of velvet attached to the antler and some red, like some blood staining. Like it just
maybe a couple weeks.
Yeah, it still stunk a little bit. So must have succumbed probably to EHD right after it shed its velvet.
Yeah. It sucks.
Man.
One less. It's just one more excuse to say, my deer died. I couldn't, that's why I didn't kill this year.
Or it just knew its fate and just decided to get it over with.
Either way, it's on your wall.
So I contacted our buddy, Agent Andrew Barnes with MDC, and got a salvage tag for it. And
good deal.
Coming home, and I don't know.
Well, speaking of bringing home a rack, we got an exclusive kind of here today, right?
Yeah. So Lance Fowler, welcome to the show, by the way. You're going to talk to us today about what it's like to kill a buck of a lifetime.
Of 3 lifetimes. A mega giant 231 or 232. Where'd we end up on this?
231 5/8 is what he came back for his green.
232 it is.
Who's counting?
I round up.
Yeah. No doubt. So this is a northern Missouri buck. Lance, take us through the history that you have with this deer.
We pretty well only have really 1 year of history. It's a fairly new farm and stuff that we purchased and stuff. And so we really only have 1 year of history with him. In this previous year, it started like back in June 25th of last year is when we got the first pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
And what did he look like last year? I mean, what kind of jump did he make in a year's time?
So last year he was pretty well. He was the first deer we got pictures of on that camera when we put it up last year. And he was pretty well, just a fairly typical 8-pointer had 2 kickers basically is all he had. And I mean, probably 160-inch deer last year ish is what we wasn't able to find the sheds and stuff. So that's just pretty well roughly what we had him at last year, is being around 160-inch 8-pointer with 2 kickers is basically.
And how old?
Basically what it was last year.
Yeah. How old was he then?
Well, see, that's what we've had. We thought last year when we first got pictures of him, we thought he was a 5-year-old. And then kind of talking to some neighbors and stuff that had several more pictures of him last year and stuff, they kind of thought he was a 4.5-year-old. So it's kind of his teeth and stuff. We got his teeth sent off, so it'll be interesting to see what they come back as.
Yeah, it's interesting to me what deer can do, because if a deer put on 40 inches in a year, you'd be like, hell yeah. I mean, 20 to 30 inches seems to be a hell of a jump, but 40, 50, I mean, you're talking from roughly 160 up to 230. That's unbelievable. And you don't really hear those type of jumps often. So, okay, you had some pictures of him last year. Did you have any encounters with him during the season, or any pictures of him throughout the season last year?
Last year, I mean, we had several pictures of him. I mean, he showed up frequently kind of early in the season when he had velvet. He was there a lot and stuff, and just kind of was a deer that were like every time you got a picture of him, he's noticeably stuck out how high he came up off of his head and stuff. And just, he had a lot of mass last year. We noticed that and stuff. And so he was a deer that really stood out to you every time you got a picture of him, but he wasn't a deer really last year that we really focused on and tried to hunt a whole lot, because we had a few other options last year and stuff. So he wasn't at the top of our list last year. So we just kind of, if one of us would have been bow hunting out there, we thought he was a 5-year-old. So we would have probably shot him last year and stuff, just as being a really nice 8-pointer and stuff with a lot of mass. We thought he was an old deer, but we just kind of never did even hunt the farm out there because we had other options and had better options, we thought, at the time. So kind of turned out in a good grace, I guess.
Yeah, good to have options.
What's that like?
Well, I mean, sometimes you have options and they all suck.
Yeah. What kind of collaboration, coordination was there, if any, between the neighbors and this deer? Because you mentioned talking to the neighbors about that buck.
Yeah, so I actually just did get a chance to talk to him last night. I took him out last night and was able to show him, and they was very appreciative of that and stuff. And so they had pictures of the deer last year, and they had more pictures. Basically from like October 1st, he kind of left our farm and pretty well went on the neighbors full time. And he would just come back through our farm and check scrapes about once a week or so and stuff. He'd go through and check scrapes and stuff. And the neighbors, they elected they was going to pass him and stuff too last year. And they gave him a pass several times. I mean, they got videos of him rutting and coming through on different chasing does and stuff. And they passed him multiple times. A lot more of a challenge for them than it was for me last year, for sure.
So he moved his home range. Season ends. Fast forward to the summer, this past summer, so 24. And what happens? Do you see him first? Do you get a picture of him first? Here's where the story kind of starts to get interesting. And I should note that there's a whole write-up about this inside DeerCast. One of our writers did an article with you, and it turned out awesome. I mean, even some people were commenting like they were shaking reading it because they were just worried what was going to happen next. So take it from there and kind of take us through first sighting this past summer.
So pretty well. I mean, we waited. I got out there a little later and stuff. I had a lot of cameras up before I got out there, and it wasn't till like this year around I don't know, it was July 10th, I think it was. And my dad kept saying, he's like, there's a lot of deer out there in that cornfield. He's like, we need to be getting a camera out there, see what's out there and stuff. And because we did have a few, like we had him and stuff, but we had 2 other really young bucks that we was kind of excited to see if they had made it and stuff. And so we're going out there, and me and my dad's both walking down through the draw and stuff. We get down there and we cross the ditch, and to pretty well, it's just a big cornfield, and there's a big draw that runs all the way down through it. And we walked across the ditch, and there's a finger going up on top of the hill. And as soon as we come around the corner, like probably 180 yards away, there's a little buck jumps up, and then another really big buck jumps up, and you see him take off running kind of up the hill, and he turns the corner in that draw. And we both kind of like didn't even say a word, just kind of paused and looked at each other. And I looked at him, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. And he's like, he kind of looks at me, he's like, I kind of agree with you and stuff. And we both knew, like, but at the same point, 200 yards running away from you, you know how they all look and stuff.
Yeah.
But not thinking nothing what it was. And so we set that camera up and stuff. And I ended up calling one of my buddies. I'm like, dude, we just jumped up a buck. And I'm like, might be the biggest buck I've ever seen and stuff in person. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So fast forward, we go ahead and put the camera up. Next day at 11:43, middle of the day, it's like 94 degrees out. And he walks right into the camera, and still fully velveted, obviously, and stuff. And he just sits there and just poses back and forth for the camera and stuff. And you're like, oh my goodness. Not wondering, well, we knew there's a big deer out there, obviously, but not even close to what showed up the next day on cameras.
So at that point, I mean, I can only imagine everybody drops everything, you know, you, your dad, whatever, whoever's hunting there with you. It's like, all right, how do we kill this deer?
Yeah. So that's pretty well what we led into and stuff. And we're like, okay, well, this is something like we've never had before, obviously, and stuff. So like, you start running through stuff, and we're like, obviously it's in an area that's got a well-traveled road that travels right through it, and it's an old county road and stuff. And so we knew that we had to kind of somewhat keep him secretive because he was a big enough deer. We knew if people found out about him, that's just leading to bad things happening.
Yeah.
So we buried through, like, my family and stuff. We knew, we told them, and then very few outside people, just basically family, knew about him and stuff, trying to keep him as much of a secret as we could. And then kind of going into it, we started, like, he was there the next 2 days in a row and stuff, and morning and night you get pictures of him and stuff. And we're like, okay, now this comes down. We gotta start getting some more cameras out there, start figuring out a little bit more. So I don't know, it was like about a week after we got pictures of him on that camera and stuff, I decided, me and my buddy went out and stuff. I was like, I got to get a bunch more cameras out there, and I at least got to get one stand set. So I'll have something come if I can't get back in and stuff. So we had a good win. We go out there and we're start setting up some trail cameras, just kind of in draws and stuff, make sure he's not exiting the farm and stuff. And then there's another big finger on up the main draw that kind of cuts back to the west and stuff. And there's an old mud pond clear up at the top of it. It still holds water and stuff. So I'm like, I'm about 90% sure I think that's where he's kind of hanging around. And so we're down there by where we first seen him and stuff. We set up that stand, put a stand right there, and we start moseying our way on up through there. And I told my buddy Carter, I was like, I just think I gotta have a camera up that draw. I was like, it's too good of a draw for him not to be up there and stuff. And in my head, I'm kind of thinking, like, that's kind of the place I think that I might end up killing him and stuff. And so I got the wind perfect right in my face and stuff. And he stays back at the 4-wheeler and was kind of looking at another area to put a camera up. And so I keep moseying on up through there. I stop and put one camera in another spot, and I'm looking on Onyx, and there's a big opening right below that pond. I'm like, I gotta get at least to there, because I was like, I think if I get a camera there, they'll figure out a lot of things, hopefully. And so I'm keep going up through there, wind's going to my face, and this buck pretty well only had one buck that he ever ran with. He didn't really hang out with many bucks, and it was just basically a little forkhorn that was very noticeable on his features and stuff. And so I'm walking up there, I just get to that opening, and that little forkhorn jumps up about 10 feet in front of me, and I'm like, oh crap, he's here somewhere.
He's here.
Yeah. So instantly I dropped down and stuff, and I'm just staying as close to that tree as I could. And the grass luckily it's tall all the way around me. And I'm just hunkering down as tight as I can. And you see him stand up about 25, 30 yards away from me. And you're like, oh no, this ain't going to end good. But luckily I had the wind in my favor. He knew something was there, but hadn't really figured out what it was. And he kind of slowly works around the bend of this draw and stuff, and kind of up towards that pond, works behind some trees. And so I go to work, start slapping the camera up on the tree, and I get my solar panel fastened down. And about that time, as I'm just connecting it to my phone, make sure it's working, you see, I look back up, and he's starting to walk right back around the corner right to me at like 35 yards. I'm like, oh no. So instantly I just drop down, do what anybody does anymore, just pull out your phone and start videoing and see what's going to happen. And he just starts walking right at me. I'm like, oh God, he's going to walk. So then he starts trotting at me and stuff, and he ends up running up on me at like 5-6 yards.
Oh,
and I'm just laying down in the grass. And so obviously he ends up spooking and stuff and takes back up out of there, and instantly your heart just sinks. You're like, this is like, that's the last time I'm going to see him. Like, I've spooked him. He's gone. I won't ever see him again for sure. And I instantly call my buddy. I'm like, he just ran up on me. He's like, no, he didn't. It's like, I got a video to show you when you get back and stuff. And so at that point, we're like, I just had a 200-inch deer run right up on top of me and spook him. I'm like we're never seeing him again. Like, we'll get pictures. He's gone. Yeah. And stuff. So we get on out of there, and everything cools back down. That evening, I end up getting him on like 4 or 5 different cameras. Didn't phase him a bit. And the next morning, same thing. And like, just obviously ecstatic, because we're just beyond excited that he didn't just bust out of there and leave.
Yeah.
And then you keep getting pictures of him, obviously, all summer pretty well. all the way through July, he was very consistent. I mean, just never hardly left and stuff. And then finally come into August. I can't remember what the date is for sure, but he ends up taking off for like 7 days, 5 or 7 days. And you're like, okay, well, we kind of expected him to, picturing off of last year's pictures. That's kind of what he'd do. He'd take off for a little while and then he'd come back for 3 or 4 days. And so we go into that same routine, takes off. He comes back for like 3 days. I'm like, okay, wish he was here all the time, but if he's going to give us 3 days to get a shot at him, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And stuff. So we keep running cameras and stuff and just try to stay out the best we could pretty well. And just so he wasn't going to bump him and stuff no more. And it's finally like right around the 28th of August, he takes off and never kind of took off. And we're like, oh, it's just, he'll be back in a couple, 4 or 5 days or so and stuff. And 4 or 5 days go by, no pictures. 10 days go by, 2 weeks goes by, nothing. Finally, 17 days later, he shows back up. I went back in between that time and stuff, and I put a mock scrape up, and we hung another set. And he actually ended up hitting, like, it was like the next day after that, hit that scrape and stuff right in front of that tree stand. And you're like, okay, well, because after 17 days, we had went by, like, everything's going through your head. Like, someone shot him from the road. Like, he's dead. Like, where did he go to and stuff? And I thought for sure, like, our neighbors and stuff, I was like, we don't have any oak trees on that property out there and stuff. And they have one of the best hardwood timbers and stuff around. And saw him instantly. I was thinking, like, that's fine. Like, that's where he's at for sure and stuff. And now finding out, talking to them, he never did even go back to them. They only had pictures of him. Their last pictures of him was June 28th.
Oh, shoot.
And stuff. So now knowing, I don't know where he went for those 17 days, but
when he came back,
didn't have any pictures of him, that's for sure.
When he came back, he had shed his velvet.
Yeah. When he came back, he had a lot of velvet hanging off and stuff. Hadn't really got rid of it all, in which he still hasn't got rid of a ton of it and stuff. He's still got quite a bit hanging on. But yeah, he had shed half of his velvet for sure is hanging off and stuff. And that night he hit that scrape, hit it and stuff, and kind of went on down, checked out a few more cameras and stuff. And then the next day he came back and hit that scrape in the evening, and he ended up laying down out in front of that scrape, I don't know, 15 yards out in front of that scrape, and stayed there for 5 hours. Wow. And this was like on the 16th or 17th of September, which season had opened. Yeah. And stuff. So I wake up early in the morning and stuff. I'm like, well, if he's still up there by then, I'm going to sneak in and get below him on those stands, because the wind wasn't perfect. But if he was still above me, I would be able to get down below him pretty well and still be okay. And so I wake up like 4, I think it was like 4:30 or so. And at 4:25, he's standing right in front of that tree stand and stuff. So obviously couldn't go in there, and not like we was hoping we could and stuff. So go ahead, and we couldn't hunt him that day and stuff. And I hunted him a few times, like around there and stuff. And just whenever the wind was right, we was just trying to get in and make it of what we could. And several hunts I'd go in and see 2 bucks, and it's a spot that you're not going to see just a ton of deer, but it's the right kind of deer. And so we'd had a few hunts of them, and you go in there and you just see does or don't see anything really. And finally it was like, would have been the Saturday before I killed him and stuff. I'm not sure what the date is on that one, but I had a perfect wind, really, really stiff wind and stuff. And I'm going out there, and I go ahead and I got a draw that I sneaked down off the main road and stuff that I thought was a really good access at the time and stuff. And we go ahead, and I'm set up in the tree and get my camera set up and everything. And I start glassing, because those draws are really heavy and stuff. And there's constantly, you'll see deer just stand up within 100 yards of you that you don't even know is there. Mm-hmm. And so I just start glassing right away, and like don't end up seeing nothing. Like probably 45 minutes goes by, and I turn around, I glass that draw that I walked in on, and just happened to notice like glassed it and stuff, didn't see nothing. As soon as I put my binoculars down, he stands up at like 180 yards away, right on the same draw I walked in. And this draw's not 15 yards wide. And I walked in, looking the corn on the one side, and he stood up on the other. And for whatever reason, don't know why he didn't bust out that day, beyond me and stuff. And
that's crazy.
I can't get a 2-year-old to be this photo.
Lucky is all that came down to.
It's amazing, man. I mean, the amount of times that you've walked right next to this thing or jumped him, it's just amazing.
And he loves the camera.
For sure. But that's we talked about it and stuff too. And like the only thing that we can find out, which the grass is tall enough, like if he was laying a few rows in the corn and stuff, he's probably not seeing out of it. And that wind was blowing hard, rustling through the corn. Like it was loud, that like walking down through there and stuff. So
that helps.
So that's pretty well the only hope I had to cover me, I guess.
It worked.
So did you end up getting footage of him that day from your phone or from a camera?
Oh yeah, I got from the time he stood up, he stayed out there for like an hour and like 25 minutes and stuff.
Wow. And
just kind of worked up and down the draw. And so I've got a ton of videos and stuff of him from walking back and forth, because he kind of you could tell like he knew something was up at the same point, but wasn't really, never bothered him and stuff, because he just dinged around up there forever and just never did really want to move a ton, but would he'd stand up, he'd walk 15 yards one way, lay back down for 25 minutes and stand back up. He'd go eat on some corn and stuff. And that's pretty well what he did the whole night. And finally getting down closer to dark and stuff, he was clear at the top of that draw. And I mean, he just breaks and just starts walking right down towards the tree. And I'm thinking like, he's got to start booking it before he's going to get here before dark. And so I'm sitting there and stuff, and I get my camera turned and whatever. And there's a portion that I kind of lose him coming and stuff, that he gets behind the corn a little bit when he gets down low, like to my level and stuff, that I lose him. But I can still hear that he's still coming, because he stopped on the corner and you could hear him hitting the corn and stuff.
How far from you at this point?
At this point, he's probably like 60 yards.
Oh shit.
Yeah. He covered some ground coming, and I can hear him coming around that corner. As soon as I come around the corner, you can see him. Like, it's still light enough I could see him and stuff. And I was like, okay, I still got enough light and whatnot. And he's coming, keeps coming, and ends up stopping there like 30 yards from me for like 10 minutes and just kind of stayed behind a tree and stuff. I didn't have a shot at him, basically, is all it came down to. Pointed close enough and didn't have a shot at him, and he just hangs around there forever. And
you're
just
counting down the minutes.
Oh yeah, and this whole time it's just getting later and later and later. And finally he breaks and he starts coming walking and walks right into my hole, but he's hugging the tree line too close, and it was darker. If he would have been out 10 yards up against the corn, probably could have got a shot on him that night for sure. But he hugged that tree line and stuff, and it just, the shadows and stuff, it was too dark to get a shot at him that night when he walked by at 22 yards.
So was he walking down the path you came in on at that point, or?
At that point, so I would come straight down, and I dropped into the ditch and would walk the ditch down to my stand. And he could have cut across the ditch, and at that point he just cut right in and stuff. Where I went straight, he cut and came to the left. So
do you think he ever crossed your scent trail at any point, or no?
At some point walking down through there, he would have had to, yes.
Huh. Do you use any kind of, what do you do from that regard?
Pretty well all the
nose jammer
I use, really.
Nose jammer?
Just spray it. Like I've always been good to spray it on my boots and stuff while I'm walking in. Then I get to the base of the tree, spray it on the tree a little bit.
Yeah.
And whether it's luck or that played into it, I'm a believer in it, I guess, because he didn't catch on to it.
Yeah, nose jammer. We've been using that for a long time now, and I believe in it. I've seen them. I've seen some adverse reactions every once in a while, but by and large, it seems to just they maybe get a whiff of something they're not sure, or it totally doesn't bother them whatsoever, and they just keep on.
Out in Kansas, you had a buck like follow your footsteps, like it was curious about it, didn't you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
I was just curious because that's one of those things where it's like, all right, what's your regiment? You know, a deer like that, Mark and Terry talk about that all the time. A big, mature buck like that, I mean, they're just so weary of everything. Mm-hmm. So I was curious if there was any kind of regimen that you went through before you went in, because it sounds like he had to cross you.
Yeah, I put all my clothes and stuff in a scent locker bag and stuff, and pretty well run that on my way out there, changing the field, spray my boots down and stuff, and then walk in, and we've used it for a long time, and it definitely, we've had a lot of deer that they follow your trail and stuff, and then you think like, oh, they know something's up, but at the same point they don't know what's wrong, so then it doesn't end up bothering them. And that's the same thing he did that night, and that's kind of the reason I think he didn't come down to me with enough shooting light is he expected something was wrong and stuff, and he just kind of made sure, took his time and making sure that he wasn't wrong and stuff.
Yeah. He didn't blow out of there, but it slowed him a little bit.
Yeah. That's kind of pretty well what we had thought and stuff.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So what's the next? So what, a week later you get the right wind again, or?
It's a deer of a lifetime. You gotta, at some point, cause we knew here shortly that he's going to take off and leave us, and it was going to get extremely harder because he hadn't missed a day in the last week and a half of having pictures of him and stuff. And so we, same way with my dad, he was just saying that like here soon, he's going to be taking off like deer of a lifetime. You got to hunt him if any possible chance. And same way, that's what my uncle and stuff had said. And so I was like, told my brother couldn't get off from work and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to go and stuff. I'll get in there and see what we can find out and stuff, and see if we can make it work. And so the wind ended up switching like around 2:30 and stuff, and it's to a really good wind. And I come out of the house and was plenty early enough, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna shoot an arrow out of my bow real fast, just knock the nerves off a little bit. And so I just from my truck in the driveway, just happened to pull my bow out, and the target's already out in the yard. And from there, it's like 64 yards, I think. So I draw back and get ready to settle in, and I let that arrow loose and stuff, and it hits like 8 inches low. I feel really confident. I mean, I've always prided myself in shooting and stuff, and I feel pretty confident from that area I'm going to hit a pretty tight area and stuff. And I was like, that can't be me. So I scoot up to like 45 yards, pull back, shoot another arrow, and it's like same thing, like 8 inches low. I'm like, oh my God, like what is happening? Like that couldn't have been me. So instantly you move up, I'm at 20 yards, I shoot an arrow, I'm like 5 inches low at 20 yards. And so you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
That's why you always shoot before you go.
Oh yeah. So you start checking your boat from top to bottom, just looking at every little thing and stuff. I'm like, I can't find anything. My sight's still tight and stuff. I was like, after a while goes by, I'm like, I can't find anything. So like, I was like, I guess the only thing I can do is just move my sight a little bit. So I slide my sight down, shoot another arrow. It's like 2 inches low, move my sight a little bit more. Got it to where I was like half inch low at 20 yards and stuff. I'm like, I've wasted enough time. Like, now that's good enough and stuff. And so you go from being really confident in your shooting ability to not knowing exactly what it's going to turn out to. So, I shot another one at like 50 yards before. Yeah, I shot another one at 50 yards before I left and stuff, and I hit the same thing, just a tick low, and I'm like, all right, 50 yards, and then I should be okay. But at the same point, I'm like, I still feel like something's moved on my bow. So what is it like other than my sight and stuff? So yeah, same thing. You go to being really confident to not knowing exactly what to expect, I guess. And so I'm running a little bit late. Camera stuff's all in the truck and stuff, and I was running late. I was like, I don't want to screw with my camera stuff. I was like, I'm leaving it behind. I knew it'd take too much weight and take time to put up.
I know where this is going.
So you leave it. Yeah. But so I leave it in the truck and stuff, and I get down the road and end up getting out and changing and stuff and get to walking down the stand, I always kind of ease my way down there and stuff. Right when you get to the edge of the corn, I usually knock an arrow just to because it's about 40 yards of opening, like in between there and my tree and stuff. And you just kind of, usually when I come around that corner, I kind of have an arrow knocked and stuff, just for that whatever reason. If something, because there's been does in the past that's bedded down in that ditch right below my stand.
Well, based on your luck, he'd be right below it.
Walking towards you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you're
don't want to take no more chances at that point.
Yeah.
And so then keep going and stuff. I get up in the tree and I'd work myself up stuff. I got a little hot and stuff. So I just took a few minutes, tried to cool myself down as best I could, tried not to get myself sweating and stuff. And finally, like probably 30 minutes goes by and stuff. I get up in glass and stuff, just like I do every night, and don't see anything, sit back down for probably 20 minutes or so. And then I finally get back up, start glassing. I thought I seen something like clear up this draw, clear as far as you can go away from it and stuff. I was like, looks like something, but at the same point, it's not moving or nothing. Kept watching it, and then finally you see its head roll, and instantly you can see like the drop tines off the one side and stuff hanging off.
Here we go.
It's 100% that deer. Like there's no question that's him. And so at that point, I don't have my camera. I'm already mad at that fact that, like, because I know I'm going to end up seeing he's going to stand up eventually. And so I don't have my camera. So I start sending my buddies videos and my brother videos of him laying out there just on my phone and stuff. And so he goes by, he still lays there for, I can't remember at this time what it was, but he ends up laying there for another probably 30 minutes before he does anything. And he finally ends up standing up about 30 minutes later and stands up, takes like 2 steps and lays right back down. Like he's going to do the same thing he did the other night. He's going to keep moseying around. He'll eventually get down here after dark and stuff. And so some time goes by. He only laid down for probably 10 or 12 minutes there, stands back up and starts eating on some grass and stuff, and twigs up there. And he did that for probably like 15-ish minutes and stuff. And at this point, he's 320 yards away from me. And about that time, about 15 minutes later, a buck stands up about halfway down. This draw kind of goes up and then it wides at the top and goes both ways. And he's up on the right side. And a buck stood up like right out of the center of that draw, about 120, 130-ish yards away from me and stuff. And he was out there for a little bit. And then finally the big buck up there, he seen him, and instantly, I mean, he sees him and picks his head up. And I mean, he just dead sprints at this buck.
What?
So I got a video of him running and stuff. And I instantly throw my phone down and start grabbing my bow, because I'm like, if he just runs all the way here, he might end up running all the way into me.
Yeah.
And so he gets there, he kind of pushes that buck off, and that buck didn't really want to do anything. And after he pushes that buck off a little bit, he starts walking back up the draw. I'm like, oh no. I was like, he's going to go back up there. And there's a small tree out there in the center of this thing. He goes right back up to that, and he just starts breaking this thing down. Just has it flopping from one side clear over the other, laying it over. And the whole time I'm sitting there like, really wishing I had my camera right now, because I'm watched him from 320 yards come all the way in.
I'd say I don't believe you, but you have so many other instances where you did film him.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and elect to believe you here.
Yeah. Well, that's what I got to talk. Well, I just was telling myself, I was like, dang, I wish I had my camera, because the way it was working out, it's like it would have made really, really easy footage to get him on camera and stuff coming in. And so he ends up working that tree for, like I said, like another probably 10 or 12 minutes. And he's just shredding this thing back and forth. And he's at one point, I mean, he's got it laid clear over on the ground and stuff. And he comes up finally, picks his head up and starts walking out. He's got branches stuck up in his horns and stuff. And so he starts shaking his head back and forth and stuff. He finally gets him thrown out of there. And I'm thinking, like, at this point, I was like, when I first saw him, I was like, and he stood up, I was like, I got tons of time. But at this point, it took him like 45 minutes to just close 120 yards. And he sprinted 100.
What are your nerves doing through this period? Because you've seen, I mean, you have seen the buck a lot in the last month, but in general, what are you thinking? Like, you got all this time to watch him.
The encounter I had in the stand with him, I mean, I like, obviously you're shaking and stuff. And like the next day I was working and stuff, and my dad, I was like, kept feeling my legs and stuff. And my dad's, what are you doing and stuff? I was like, my legs are sore from being so tense and stuff sitting up there in the stand. Like they're like legit sore the next day. And so then like this time that we're just talking about and stuff, obviously they're a little bit better, but there's no way to compare them to anything I've ever had before, for sure. You're just sitting there and shaking the whole time. And then you're like, your hands start sweating, obviously, and you're just trying to hold yourself calm and stuff. But just a good thing I was in a big tree, I guess. I wasn't shaking too bad.
Yeah. Jeez. So how far he's shaking the limbs out from his rack? How far is he here, and what happens next?
So he's about like 120 yards at this point.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, still out there a ways,
yeah.
But so he closed quite a bit of ground there and stuff. And he keeps, when he finally breaks and get those limbs shook out of his horns and stuff, he breaks and kind of starts coming down the draw right at me. And so he gets out there, like walks all the way to about 85 yards and puts his head down and just starts eating. We had seated along the edge of those waterways a little bit and stuff to prevent some ditches, and he gets into and just starts eating on those waterways. And I'm like, oh my God, he's just wasting so much time. Like he's going to wait all the way till it's dark.
Trying to kill you.
There.
Come here.
He's like 85 yards and stuff. So you can see him very clearly at that distance. And so he does that for like 18 minutes, just sits there and eats and stuff. And finally he breaks and starts walking, walks up to 62 yards and goes and sticks his head all the way in the corn. I was like, there's no way he's walking through that corn and stuff. And so he goes in there and he just starts eating on a couple ears of corn. And luckily he only did that for about 3 to 4 minutes. Kind of didn't do much there. And finally, when he quits eating on the corn, he pretty well breaks and starts coming. And I'm sitting there looking at him. And I got 2 shots pretty well. For him to walk out of the draw, he's got to go either on the left side of me or he's got to go on the right side of me. Mm-hmm. And on the right side, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Like it's going to be about a 30-yard shot and he'll probably be, the way he's coming, he'll be quartered to me a little hard. And so I was, in my head, I was hoping he goes left of me and stuff, because then he's going to be like 25 yards, just ever so slightly quartered away and stuff. And I'm like really hoping he goes to the left and stuff. And when he breaks, he pretty well hugs that left side the whole time. And so I'm go ahead and get shifted a little bit and stuff, because I'm like, here's this is going to be my shot. And I've got a branch that sticks out down below me, kind of, that we left for my cover for when a deer gets behind, to be able to draw back on him. And so at this point, he's walking 45 yards and keeps walking, never really broke stride from when he stopped eating on the corn. And he's all the way at 30 yards. He finally gets behind the limbs there and stuff. And I draw back and he walks, he just keeps stride for stride. And we talked about it early, like whether I wanted to take a chance in trying to stop the deer at 20 or so yards and being that close of that old a deer and that caliber of deer to take my chances of stopping him, or do you just shoot him on the walk and stuff? And I've shot enough. I feel very confident shooting a deer on the walk at that distance and stuff. So we kind of talked about that, and I was like, I just don't think I'm going to stop him if I don't have to and stuff. Mm-hmm. And if he's just a nice steady walk. And so he keeps walking. I'm drawn back already. And finally his head just peeks out from behind that brush and he just stops and doesn't move. I'm like, oh God, here we go. He's going to try to do a standoff here. And so he has no clue, obviously, where I'm at this point. And he's just kind of licking himself. He would always bristle up and just like would shake all the way out. And he's doing that there at 25 yards from me. And you can just hear him at that point. And there's a camera right in front of him and stuff. And I thought the whole time the camera was taking pictures of him. And I thought that's kind of what he was looking at. And so, but he stops and stuff, and I'm still full draw here. And I'm holding this thing back as long as I can, long enough. Like I put my hand back behind my neck to try and hold it for whatever longer you could. And finally, at that point, I had held long enough that I'm like, I'm I don't feel confident. Like, I'm not going to make a great shot on him here if he starts walking. And he finally turns his head. So I let down with him at 25 yards. But then at that point, you're like, God, now I got to get this thing drawn back as soon as he starts taking a step. Yeah. And so he messes around there for literally, like, he's watching this other buck in the corn, never moves, just eating grass and licking himself off and stuff. Sits there for 5 to 8 minutes and never moves at 25 yards.
It's a lifetime.
And you can imagine what your nerves are doing at that point, like that close to him and stuff. And I was just kept waiting for him to put his nose up in the air and stuff, start licking his nose. I was like this close because the wind was not blowing at all. Stuff. I was just waiting for it to swirl one time and I was going to be in trouble. And luckily enough, I mean, he never did lick his nose off and stuff. And so he finally, I mean, after that 5 to 8 minutes, he starts taking a step and stuff. And I just pulled back, which I was sitting in a tree stand, put our tree stands high on purpose and stuff. So I'm way up there in the air and stuff. And I draw back and he doesn't notice anything. And he's just walking and stuff. And I just put it on his front shoulder and pretty well squeeze it off. And from the time I squeezed it off, I knew I hit just a little back from where I was wanting to hit and stuff. But at the same point, you're like, I just got an arrow in a 200 whatsoever deer and stuff, and knew it was a fatal hit no matter what. But what also kind of disappointed, like you knew you hit back a little bit from where you just wanted to hit. And so I instantly know, I was like, that's back of lungs, liver for sure. I mean, at the worst. And so he runs through that camera, and my brother's getting the pictures from the camera of him running through. And so he starts freaking out and stuff, and he couldn't tell. He's like, he knew that was the buck running through, and like couldn't tell if there was blood on his side, like if I had hit him or if I'd missed him. And so I mean, he runs hard for like probably 10 steps and then just stops. Like at this point, he's like 32-ish yards from me, but just behind a tree where I can't. It's a hedge tree and stuff. You can kind of see through and see him.
Can't get a follow-up shot.
You can't obviously see enough to get another shot at him. And so he's just standing there, and I'm just kind of can't see him, but you can see him good enough to tell he's still there. And I just kept watching stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, can't call anybody. My phone's just buzzing off the wall because my brother's freaking out because he could see him run through the camera. And so my brother's calling my dad, like, has he called you? He's like, he ran through the camera and stuff. And so we go on, and I mean, he stood there at 35 yards for probably a minute and 30 seconds and stuff. And I'm thinking like, oh no, I gotta hit him back. Like
for sure.
Like obviously thinking liver. Yeah. Like it's going to take him a minute. Like hopefully he'll bed down and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a fatal hit on him and stuff. And probably just shy 2 minutes goes by, and you could see, I seen him start swaying. I mean, he just topples over there at 35 yards from me. And from that point, you're just obviously ecstatic and stuff.
So what did you hit?
So we ended up definitely, I hit back of lungs is what it ended up hitting.
Wow.
So like he basically started filling up, and I'm not saying I couldn't hit like that main artery that runs back down through there and stuff, and very easily could have for sure. But at that point, I was more ecstatic for just seeing him on the ground than worrying about where the arrow landed for sure. But he definitely hit back of lungs and liver both. So definitely was a fatal shot for sure. But
he falls
didn't
over.
think it was going to be quite that fast.
Yeah, falls over. What's the first thought in your head?
So I mean, instantly you're just ecstatic, obviously, with excitement and stuff, and knowing that he's laying 30 yards from me and stuff. And so I instantly start shaking, and then instantly you start calling people. Mm-hmm. And so I call my dad and stuff, and he's just about tearing up and stuff, just so excited. And goes into, I was like, I'm 99% sure he's just laying dead right here at 35 yards. I was like, I heard him topple over, take his last breath and stuff, but I'm not on the ground. And so they're all excited and stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm going to call my brother. I'm going to call Levi and stuff. And he's like, all right, well, I'll get stuff around and load side by side and stuff. I was like, okay. And I was like, I'll call you back and figure out a game plan for sure and stuff. So I call my brother. He's ecstatic. I mean, because he had seen him run through the camera and stuff. And he's wondering, he's like, I was starting to wonder. He said, I hadn't got phone call from him. It had been like, at that point, it'd been probably like 5 or so minutes after he ran through the camera and stuff. He's like, I thought you missed for sure. He said, I was expecting to see the bow launched out in front of the camera and stuff and whatnot. And,
fair enough.
And so he was ecstatic and stuff. And then he starts, I hung up with him and had to call my other buddy and stuff that's went hunting and filmed me a lot and stuff. And so I call him and he's just with beyond joy and stuff. He's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I was like, all right, well, I won't be out of the stand yet, but you can be there for sure.
Yeah,
and
those are the
so
good
he
friends.
gets there and stuff. He brought his brother and his dad and stuff. And then I called my uncle, which was, he did quite a bit for us. And he's just got more experience with a lot of big deer in his lifetime and stuff. He's been lucky enough. He's killed several deer in the 190s and stuff.
Man,
and his son killed a 214 a couple of years ago and whatnot. So I ended up calling them and they're both like, my uncle's like, I knew you'd catch up to him. He said, I looked at Gates this morning and stuff and told him, it's like, I think tonight's going to be the night he puts an arrow in him and stuff. And so they're obviously beyond excited and stuff. My dad, he finally gets the side-by-side loaded up with the Swift lift on it and stuff. And he meets us out there and I finally get slid down out of the stand after like 30 minutes. I'm still shaking and stuff. I let my nerves settle down before I decided to climb down out of it. And so I kind of climb down out and sneak out just to make sure. I mean, he's sure's dead and stuff. And I sneak down, creep on out. And you can just see his big left side just hanging up out of the grass, and you're like instantly just like that's the end of the game there. And so then I didn't even walk over to him and stuff, whatnot. I just walked back out and stuff, top on the four-wheeler, drove back up to the barn and stuff to where my truck was, and I had like a couple minutes to myself there and stuff. And then my buddy rolls in and stuff, and he's just going crazy. He's like, did you put your hands on him? Like, how big is he? How big is he? I was like, dude, I was said too much excitement going on. Like, I didn't even put my hands on him. I didn't even walk over to him and stuff. I was like, he's big. That's all I can tell you and stuff. And which he had seen, I showed him pictures obviously all summer and stuff. And people start showing up and the joys start and stuff. And I don't even know how many people ended up showing up for sure, but we loaded up a whole side-by-side and a four-wheeler and stuff, and we start running down there to him and stuff. And so everybody's like, well, where we start tracking him and stuff? I was like pointing my arrow and stuff, and they didn't realize, I mean, he's like 10 yards from my arrow at this point.
It's a recovery job, yeah.
And so we pick up my arrow and stuff, and we look over, and everybody just starts going crazy and stuff. And obviously was still bigger. We knew like having trail cam pictures was like, yeah, he's a 200-inch deer and stuff. But then you get over to him and you're like, his mass is just insane.
Hold that rack up for us real quick so we can see it.
231.
231 and 5/8. And look at the mass on his main beams there, kind of palmated out to the tips. And then of course where he's, where it really adds up, I'm sure, is all that trash. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And did he have a lot of that the year before? Did he have much of that trash the year before or no?
The year before, he was a slick 8-pointer and had 2 kickers.
Wow.
Weird.
What? It's like, how does that happen?
Pretty well.
Unless it's a completely different deer.
Yeah, I mean.
That's the thing. And that even came into our head. We're like what? Like, it has to be a different deer because nobody's ever seen one take that big a leap and stuff. And the neighbors, that's literally what they do. It's a big deer farm. All they do is hunt it and stuff. And the 2 guys that work there, they get paid just to keep tabs on deer is all they get to do. And they're like, no, that's 100% that deer. We passed him last year, hoping, because they thought he was a 4.5-year-old, hoping he would blow up into something. And thinking he would blow up into maybe being like 170-inch clean 8-pointer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And little did they know he blows up and comes into this thing.
Let's see it one more time. That's be the closest I get through video.
Starting to feel a little dirty.
Okay,
right now.
so he was a clean 8 last year, huh? And then man.
You wonder, like, did he get injured or something along the way that maybe?
I guess.
That's it. Yeah, scoot back. It's so big, everybody's got to scoot back to.
Must be hard.
So I want to know, how many Busch Lights did you guys drink that night?
There was definitely a handful. When we got back to the shop, there was people already. So like we just had a short drag across the ditch and stuff. We loaded them up in the Swift lift and stuff and start heading back. We load up on the trailer. We get back to the shop and there's people already there. I'm like I just shot this thing in a matter of an hour ago, and like people are already texting me. I was like I had people text me and stuff about me shooting the deer before I even get down to him and stuff. And I'm like, how does people even find out about
big
this?
deer, man? I bet that's going to be one of the biggest deer in Missouri all year, though.
Oh yeah,
I mean that will be one of the top 5 deer, if not the top deer all year.
Yeah, a lot of averages. Jeez.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, at some point you had to realize I might be able to get on the 100% Wild podcast because of this.
The what?
Like then it's when it really starts to sink in. Wow.
No, I had
we got back to the shop and stuff, and I mean there was obviously at that point there was a ton of people that had known already and stuff, and so we get back there and instantly everybody's like, I'm still just soaking it up and stuff, and instantly everybody's like, let's put a tape on him and stuff, just to get a rough guess at him and stuff. And so one of my friends and stuff, they start taping him out, and we're still just kind of oohing and awing, and basically, and pretty well, everybody put in guesses and stuff what they thought he was going to come out to and stuff, and we was all guessing him low pretty well. We still didn't think he'd be as big as he was, and so it finally comes down, and they're tallying it all up, and they're like, all right, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I still think he's shy. Like, I think he's right around like 205 to like 212-ish and stuff. And like closest guess we had, somebody guessed like 226 and stuff.
Yeah.
And we ended up taking him that night at 232 and just a few eights and stuff. And so my buddy, they was dang close for all the stuff going on to get him. And then when we had the Boone and Crockett guy come and score him and stuff, he came back at 231 and 5/8. So
I mean that's really close, because it's when you get into those like non-typical, there's stickers and kickers, and like somebody knew what they were doing when they measured it that night, because that's not easy. Right places for the mass measurements and all that stuff. Yeah.
Which he's got he measured a lot of big deer and stuff just himself, but it's the same point. I mean, he's got 58 inches of abnormal points and stuff on him.
That's awesome. How much mass was there? Do you remember?
So I can't remember right off the top of my head. I could probably look back, but I think it was just shy of 60 is what it ended up being shy of.
That's unbelievable.
On his mass.
Well, and
you got a couple of mass measurements that are like this one right here is close to, it's like 7 and some change, shy of 8.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
95% of people, including myself, would not know how to even begin to like estimate a score on a deer like that.
That's when I text Mark and Terry and say, what do you think? Guys that actually seen deer like that.
I'd shoot them.
That's what his right side ended up coming back, like scoring right around like 120 is what his right side ended up scoring around.
Whew.
And yeah, so but his mass was just lots of people. Everybody just came and looked at him like, I've never seen a deer with that much mass and stuff. I was like, yep, me neither. Probably won't ever see one like that.
Yeah. Now you get to, once you get it taxidermy done, you can enter all those, all the trade or the consumer shows, the Iowa Deer Classic and, go to the Illinois Deer Classic and all that, where people are
chicken.
Yeah. I mean, that thing's unbelievable. It's awesome. So are you in anything like that Quest Hunt Co. by chance? Cause I'm like, you'd win it, I think.
Nope. Should have signed up for some of them, but definitely did not.
Jeez. Well, what does this do for the rest of your season? Are you still excited to get back out there?
I mean, so pretty well. Yeah, I'd say I'm probably done for the year, but I pretty well when I went and because there's a ton of cell cams out there on that farm stuff, so I went and already picked up several of them and stuff, and I started scattering them out because the next thing is just to find a big enough shooter and stuff for my brother, because like pretty well our whole focus was out there. So now we got to start scattering them back out to all the farms and try to get a pattern started on a buck for my brother pretty well.
Yeah. Well, that's an unbelievable story, man. It's pretty crazy how many times you've seen him, how many times you jumped him, that's stuff and you said it in the interview here. It's like, man, you just thought, okay, that's the last time we'll ever see that deer. And that's kind of what you hear about mature bucks is like, oh, they're not going to tolerate that human intrusion. And it made me think when you said that you walked by him, or you would have had to have walked real close to him there when you came into your stand that one day. This was a hunt with a guy by the name Roger Sapper. And Mark had filmed him a little bit, but we were sending camera guys with him. He was up there in Iowa and he had a giant deer he was after. And they filmed footage of a poacher. It was during a second shotgun season or something up there, or muzz season. And they had a poacher in Hunter's Orange walking. So they were filming the deer bedded, and a poacher came through walking in, and he was in Hunter Orange, and he came within like 20 yards of that really deer. Close. And the buck never moved, and he just let that. And obviously the guy didn't know he was there. The buck was there. And so you often wonder how many times you get close to a whitetail of any kind and they just stay bedded because they see you and you don't know they're there. And their safest bet's just to stay. And you do see that sometimes where you'll walk right up on top of one before it jumps out.
I had a situation I had with a buddy in northern Missouri where we were there practically all day, had like 4 does come in and bed around my stand. He got tired and went in for lunch, and I watched them, just watch him out, and he walked right through the field I was hunting. They just watched him. They didn't care. They were bedded down. They're safe. Invisible.
Yeah. But that's incredible. I mean, of all the things that you said there, well, the time where he almost jumped on you would have been a pretty crazy one too. But I mean, this story is unbelievable from start to finish, and just a big congratulations from all of us here, because that is a deer of a lifetime and one you'll definitely be proud of forever.
Definitely don't plan on passing him, I guess, for any time.
A deer bigger than that, you're saying? Yeah.
Be a tough one to get past.
Chance.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. You never know. I love deer stories. I'm going hunting tonight.
Hope to have one of my own someday.
Hope to encounter a good 140 tonight.
I would be super happy. I told Beth, I was like, hey, the first buck that walks in front of me, 3 years old, whatever. Like
Tim hunts locally here in the St. Louis area. So he's a lot of suburban hunting or urban hunting. And it's a little different than hunting up in the north, North Missouri and Iowa and all that.
Definitely not the egg-fed deer. These are acorn-fed.
Yeah. Random
hard scrabble
patterns.
Randos. Bunch of randos. Right.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on and telling the story, man. This was a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah. And then again, if folks want to read it, they can just go over to Deercast, and we'll make sure to link it up in the show notes.
Yeah. And we should give Robbie Jessen a shout out. He was the
great job
Deercast writer on that one and was fantastic. So, man, well, the sky's blue sky for you for the rest of the season. You just get to hang out, enjoy the camp.
It's so early.
It wasn't even October. All right. I think we're going to close this one out. I'm going to the farm. I'm jacked up now.
Let's do it.
Let's killing tonight, Tim. Mark my words.
Me too.
Next podcast, we're going to talk about kill story. Just because Lance is, and I'm going to walk right by one and bump it and then go kill it.
I'm going to have one walk right up to me.
I've definitely done that part of this story.
With my arrow.
I have definitely jumped deer.
Oh yeah. Pretty good at that. Yep. All right, Lance. Thanks again, man. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. We'll see it.
All right. Well, that was an awesome one, man.
Woo. It's cool to get to hear what could be. Yeah. Because anytime you go out, there's a chance something crazy like that might happen.
That's right. And think of the jump this deer made. I mean, and so, it got the pass kind of by default last year, but look at the jump he made. Unbelievable. Yeah. So there's always hope.
Let's end with that.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody sees all seasons have started now. So everybody's out there, Illinois, Iowa, all those October 1st seasons started. Hopefully everybody's in the woods. Deercast is predicting great here, October the 1st. I'm going to be out. Hopefully you will be too.
Same.
Hopefully you'll have some luck. Until next time, Peace out.
See ya.
Take land management to the next level with DeerCast's exclusive virtual rain gauges. Pinpoint accuracy and historical data, all powered by industry-leading ag weather services. DeerCast has the tools to keep you ahead of your game.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.